Hello?
Hi there.
Hey, Joe.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice to meet you. Sorry about the mix up here. Hopefully I
All
didn't make
good.
you waiting.
No,
So,
no, no, it's okay. It's
okay.
just like also the Canadian time has like different time zones. Like I'm still adapting. It's been 5 years, but every
Yeah.
time it gets me. So I was here on this call at 11:30, my like Eastern time, and I'm like, am I wrong? Who's right? It's okay. We're here.
Well, the service I use, which is called Calendly, does really good about taking what you have and what I have and kind of makes it work.
Yeah, yeah, but anyway, it's just like you know how it would be. It's a busy week. Music's
Yeah,
coming out, so it's okay. We're here.
absolutely. And so, first and foremost, thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate you talking about the
Of
album and the
course.
life of
No, I'm
music.
more than happy, and thanks for having me, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the new work, which in my estimation from this side of the microphone is triumphant. Living through COVID the last 3 years was grueling and it worked on all of us in its own way. How did you survive it? And how good does it feel to have an album coming out right now?
Well, it was exhausting, honestly. I was doing school through the COVID years, so I graduated last year from Humber College, and all of this music was recorded at Humber College while I was a student. And during those years, it was very one way of looking at that was like I was very focused because I was doing school. I wanted to record my music, put it out there, but at the same time, it was very isolated, like as the rest of the world. But but this was my plan that okay, I can do stuff on my own. Like I could record in the studio with the masks and taking all the precautions that we had to, but then I could mix with the person who mixed it, Matthew Manifold, online and with the technology we had and stuff. And that time when the whole world was kind of shut down, I could work on this and get the product ready. And now when the world's opening up slowly, this is the time to like let the music be out. So I'm very fortunate that it just worked out with the timeline of the rest of the world, and I'm excited for it to be out this week.
So some parts is this is your debut, of course,
That's
right?
right. As a
Okay.
composer, yes.
So this is, it's always interesting with the debut because this is your way of like getting right out into the jazz world and putting yourself out there. Tell me what went into this project. What kind of energy, what was your vision for the final product?
Uh, as the title suggests, it's called Some Parts, SUM parts. So I feel still finding that voice as a composer or as an artist or as a musician in general. So over the years, growing up as a musician, like I have been through different phases as a musician. So I started my journey as a tabla player. I'm in India, born and brought up in India, and I got trained in Indian classical music, the Hindustani classical music for 15 years, and that's my early childhood. And that's what my influences were. And then I slowly got into this Western world, and the bridge was more the world music, where like the Indian classical musicians who migrated to the West and like started working with the jazz or like Western musicians such as Zakir Hussain or Trilok Gurtu or Ravi Shankar. So those were my early influences who like got me into this other side of the world. And then I slowly got into drumming. I joined a rock band, and then Led Zeppelin happened to me, which was pretty late in my life. And I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. And then one of my drum teachers introduced me to kind of blue, and that really blew my mind. And that's when my early childhood of being in a classical musician and this whole jazz world collided. And that's when I found like, oh, what's my real passion? And then I came to Humber, long story, and then studied music. And over the years, like I have had different experiences which are represented in the music that I wrote. Is like each song has its own journey, and as a whole it might not seem so collided, but that was the idea, that this album or this piece of work is just the sum of all the different parts I have lived through my life as a musician or just as a human being. So I did not put that much thought. So that is the thought that okay, everything I felt through the years, including the COVID years or me migrating to a different country, adapting to the new culture, new language, everything. So all of that is what this is. So you will hear me playing tabla on one of the songs, which comes to my like from my roots. But then there's a song, "It Might Rain," which has a pretty proggy gent section that comes from my like love for rock or progressive music. But there's so much, of course, jazz and improvisation to this.
So as your initial shout into the jazz world, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
My hope really is to just like let my honest self out as a musician and a composer. And I also have love for the production side of world, so I wanted to make sure like the record sounds like how I really imagine, and not just like okay, we're like musicians and like this is what we play. I put like enough work in making sure the sounds were right, like everything sounds the way I hope it does. And that's really the hope that the experience for the listener is the same. And I feel like even though my music is instrumental, there's no lyrics. I come from very imaginative and visual oriented or influenced world of music. So I want the listeners to experience the experience itself and not just listen to the music for the sake of just it being like an auditory experience. I just want them to like really evoke visuals that I was inspired to write the music from. And that is really, and that's why like whenever me, I would say that, oh, your music is very cinematic or it has like such a visual aspect to that. And that really is my goal with the music I write. So that's the hope.
Cool. So let's go back to the beginnings of your life to find out how you got this voice. Tell me where you were born and raised and kind of some of the influences that leaned you into music and jazz.
Yeah, so I was born and brought up in a city called Ahmedabad. It's in the Midwest of central India. And that's where I spent all my childhood and my teens in that city. It's the city called Ahmedabad. Very hot, very hot. It gets like 45 for the summer. So yeah, but that's the city my parents were all their lives. And I started, as I said, I started playing tabla at the age of 4 or 5. Like I was pretty young, and my just like love for the rhythm or just like percussion was pretty eminent as a kid as well. So my early heroes were like the Indian classical tabla players like Zakir Hussain or Birju Maharaj, who's a dancer, like who's a great artist who works with great tabla players, or Kumar Bose, Swapan Chaudhary, these kind of like just Indian classical legends. And that's my all early childhood. And then like there was something about drums. I don't know, like the drum set that was very fascinating. And even as a kid, I did not have a drum set. I would just take like utensils from the kitchen, and when my parents, like my mom was working mom, and when they were all gone, I would just bang on the dishes, like metal dishes, and just like feel how would a drummer feel. So that led to me just like starting drum lessons. But that was pretty late when I was, I would say 19 or even 20 in my late teens. And that led to like me at that point, because I had been into music very seriously all my childhood. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. So I just started going for drum lessons. And because of my knowledge of rhythm from tabla, uh, I could pick it up pretty fast, but then I had to learn the technique and the language. And one of my teachers in India, who's a very popular and renowned jazz drummer named Gino Banks, he introduced me to kind of blue, and that was my like first hit into what this whole world is. And as you can imagine, like whoever listens to kind of blue as their introduction to jazz, like what would follow? And that's exactly what happened. And yeah, since then, like I just like approached this world more and more. I started playing with some of the musicians in Ahmedabad, like my friends who shared the same love for jazz or more like improvisational music. And eventually I ended up not meeting him in person, but over this, not even Zoom at that point, it was Skype. Mark Kelso, who's one of the teachers at Humber College, but I saw his video online and I did a lesson with him, and he invited me to come to Humber. And I knew another friend from India. His name is Agnya Chikte, a very good friend of mine, a great drummer. So with those connections, I decided to come to Humber, and that led to my whole journey as a jazz composer now.
Yeah, my gateway was kind of blue too, so I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, yeah, such a powerful record.
Oh, man. So what was the first live jazz show that you saw that really moved you?
It's tricky because it's hard to put a tag to like what jazz is, right? So all my childhood, like I would just go listen to Indian classical music all my life. And then my dad, nobody in my family is a musician. So, but my dad was a, I would call him like music appreciator or art appreciator in general. So whenever there would be like like a French flautist coming in from France, whatever, like it's a very such a novel thing in the city that I come from. But he would make sure to take me to see that show. So my earliest memory, I don't think it was a jazz concert, but it was a, I think, classical concert with a pianist and a flautist. and that's when like I was introduced to this other world, which was, oh, that is this as well, where people dress up in suits, and it's not classical music, Indian classical music. So that was my earliest memories. And then like when I moved here, uh, the one it's not the one of the earliest ones, but the one of the milestone performances I can imagine is I saw a guitar player named Julian Lage, who's of course like one of the finest guitarists in the world right now. But when I saw his trio play, like I could not pinpoint like what is jazz, what is not. Like the clouds were very gray, but the way that performance moved me, and I was so close to the stage, I could see them interact, like three of them. That performance really stuck, and that's really recent, like I would say a couple of years ago. But still, like that's one of the performances which has stuck with me. And yeah, I just continue to be inspired by just like people around me. For example, like Rich Brown, Lionel Lewis, like these are the musicians who are like world class, but I get to see them. Like last week, I was at the Rex watching them play with the Jeremy Ledbetter trio, and it's just constantly inspiring and moving, and reminds me why I do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what is it about this process of being a professional musician that you like the best? There's so many things that go into it, but what is it that you like the best about it?
It's funny you ask this because I have been asking this myself, and like with the other fellow musicians that I work with, like, and there's this term in the music independent music field, which I was like, everybody's hustling. So what is it that we like, right? And I am slowly realizing that the hustle itself is what I sometimes enjoy. Like I would not be contained or like satisfied with just like a relaxed, more centralized, stable life as a musician, because I'm so used to just like trying so many different things and like trying to see if this works, if it doesn't work, and then what, how can I make this work? And especially when it comes to like the recent world that we live in, it's like, as you said, like we have to do everything, like from make like imagining how this music's going to sound to playing the music, recording, but also make sure, okay, how does my CD look? Oh, am I responding to the emails, or am I making sure the album's like getting the promotion it needs, etc. So all of that, like everything is adding to the skills that not just one profession is what I can pinpoint to in me as a working musician or professional musician would help. So I think like the broad sense of just like developing myself as this entrepreneurial creative professional is just very satisfying and challenging. And the fact that it is challenging, I just keep trying to get better and better at that every day. And since it's an endless process, I have this entire life to just get better at that. That's the idea.
So, since you went to school during a global pandemic and you were already getting into a field that wasn't necessarily stable, the jazz community can be kind of a push and pull kind of a thing. Was there any part of you that wavered thinking, yeah, maybe I should look into something else? Or has it always been 100%, this is my life, this is what I'm going to do?
I think so. Yeah, I've actively tried and look into really like what I really would do if I had the choice, but I've never been able to really find a completely different path if I had to even. So I mean, in a broader sense, I see myself working not just as a musician at core, but I see working with other creatives a lot. Like I am very much into inter disciplinary art, but more from like the audio side. But I always find people to work with who come from different disciplines, such as dancers or visual artists, or even like I'm doing a concert on the June 9th, which is the day the album comes out. But I'm working with a coder who's a visual artist who works with AI. And we are working on a concert where I wrote music, but we're working on visuals together, and how he can code a certain way, and like how I can change the length of the solo to fit what the visuals are. So that's the stretch of like my role as a musician that I can think of. But then if you say if I would be a lawyer, maybe not. Like I don't see myself doing that.
So, if you could go back in time and see a dream jazz show, where would you go? Who would you see?
Oof, that's a good one. A dream jazz show. I would want to see. Can I have two drummers play at the same time?
Yeah, totally.
I always imagine Mark Juliana and John Bonham play together.
Yeah.
These are my two heroes, and I can see how, because Mark also comes from like this world where he played with Bon Jovi too, and
Yeah.
like how he's such a rock drummer at heart, but then he does this really cool thing with his like just jazz quartet, but also his electronic beat music stuff. So, but then like I would want to see like him and John Bonham on the same gig,
Yeah.
and that would be my dream.
That'd be wild. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you ultimately lead the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm an honest expresser of what I feel in the moment, and that's that's been my constant reminder to myself with everything I do, really everything, that I have to be honest, and then I have to just try my best to express whatever I feel in whatever medium is the most comfortable. And I have slowly found my medium, it being like this contemporary jazz sound, and that's why like the instrumentation I chose for this record is has come through the shape that it is, using voice or even vibraphone. Or some songs have piano, but like I mean most of the record has piano, but some songs have a keyboard or a synth sound, and these are the sounds that help me just express really what I felt for that specific piece. And that has been the idea, just to be honest, especially with the world is, again, I'm going to bring this up, but the world we live in with the social media, and like how your presence as an artist, or as, yeah, somebody who's putting out a product per se, like how do you want the world to see yourself? And that's where I even try my best with everything that's going on, just to be very honest and mindful of every little thing I say and do and express.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone wants to pick up the album, learn more about live shows, you and your work, where's the best place for them to go?
So the album's going to be available all over the streaming services wherever they find their music, like on all the platforms. It's going to be available on Bandcamp to purchase if they want to really support the band and directly. They can go to my website, which is dhaivatjani.com, and we also have few limited CDs, and they can order them if they're in Toronto or Canada. I can ship it to them. And we're working on getting the merchandise ready as well. So it's all going to be on my website. They can visit dhaivatjani.com. And for the shows, yeah, like again, my website or my social media handle, which is Jani Dhaivat, @Jani Dhaivat. And I'll just spell it for the listeners. It's JANIDHAIVAT, Jani Dhaivat. And the band is called Dhaivat Jani Plus.
Right on. Hey, this has been great, man. Thank you for opening up. I appreciate you giving us an insight into the album and your life and music. Best of luck with everything.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Like it's been a pleasure really talking to you. And it was, yeah, I had a great time as well. Thank you
Me
for
too,
having me on
man.
this.